Welcome to Roots and Peaks. Today I'm going to tell you about the AMC Huts, how you can save a little money on your next adventure in New Hampshire, and also which hut is my favorite and why.
Got my fingers on the post, avocado and toast, leather seats, jet plane, always ready to go. Catch a suntan on the roof of the yacht, a penthouse elevator, take us up to the top.
Yeah, that's right. You're here because you love hiking, or your name's Sandra Dodge. That's my mom. First of all, what is the AMC? Well, the AMC stands for the Appalachian Mountain Club, or Appalachian Mountain Club if you want to say it correctly, but I don't. The AMC is an organization that helps maintain part of the White Mountains. There's also the RMC, the Randolph Mountain Club. But today we're talking about the AMC Huts. But before we get into that, could I ask you a favor? Please subscribe, like, and comment on this video. It helps a ton. Thank you so much. Okay, so what are the AMC Huts? Well, the AMC Huts are high elevation huts, or at least high elevation for New England. The shortest one sits at 2,640 feet. And to give you a sense, the tallest mountain in New England is 6,000 feet. The huts run through the White Mountains, and they're designed so that you can hut hop. You can go from one hut to the next in a day. And there are 8 of them. From west to east, you have Lonesome Lake, Greenleaf, Galehead, Zealand Falls, Mizpah Spring, Lakes of the Clouds, Madison Spring, and finally, Carter Notch. Future Ken here. Most of the visuals from now on in the video that show the huts are not from me. So I'm going to give photo credit, but I'm also going to link the videos below. If you could do me a favor, go and click on those links and show those creators some support, that would be awesome. Back to the video. Think of these huts sort of as a hotel in the middle of the mountain, but you're not going to get exactly the same type of service that you get at a hotel. If you want to learn a little bit about a specific hut and don't want to watch the whole video, I'll put those in the bookmarks below. Each one of the huts includes a fully enclosed sleeping area. Some of them are cabins with 4 to 10 beds each, and other ones are shared co-ed bunk rooms. We're talking more like bunk beds that you would have slept in at your cousin's house in the basement. With that said, we're in the mountains, so stop being so harsh, bro. All of the huts also have privies or bathrooms, usually composting toilets. They have a kitchen, a shared space with a wood stove for off seasons or when it's cold, games, some books, things to pass the time, but they also, most importantly, all have fresh water. And that fresh water is for people that are staying at the huts, but also people that are hiking through. The AMC has services like this all over the White Mountains too, so it's really good to support them. If you live in the area, I would definitely recommend getting a membership. Okay, so each AMC hut also has an on and an off season. The on season is sort of what you think of for a hotel, except it's a little bit more and a little bit less. During an on season stay, you get dinner and breakfast. You also are provided with some wool blankets and a pillow, but it is recommended that you bring some of your own bedding, especially if it's going to be cold when you stay there. On season for all of the huts starts in early June, and then it lasts through to the end of September or into the middle of October, depending on which hut you're staying at. I'll go over each one in detail in a minute. On season, as you can imagine, is also more expensive than off season. So what is off season? Well, you don't get any food and you don't get provided any bedding. So you have to bring all of your bedding and all of your food, but it is much less expensive. The other thing that you're missing in the off season is a bit of the charm that the caretakers provide during the on season. They do a ton of cool things, including little sketches. They get you up in the morning with some songs. It's just a fun little experience. Off season is more like camping if you were camping in a really nice hut that's enclosed. Sometimes off-season is also referred to as self-service season or self-serve season. I think that makes a lot more sense because really you have all the same amenities. You're just not getting food provided to you, and you're also not getting some of that bedding. As a kid, my family always went on Memorial Day weekend because that was the last weekend before full service kicked in. So we would bring our own food and have an adventure that way. It's also a really great way to save some money because it's significantly cheaper for off-season. And that's one way that you can save money at an AMC hut. The second way I alluded to earlier is you can become a member because you save 20% off any purchases for AMC products or AMC stuff. You can see the website here. I'll also link it down below, but I would definitely check them out. And now it's time to get into each individual one of the huts. The first one we're going to talk about, starting from west to east, is Lonesome Lake. Lonesome Lake is one of the huts that's open year-round. So their off-season is from October until May, but you can still stay at the hut during those times. It's just self-serve. Lonesome Lake sits at 2,760 feet. It has a capacity of 48 total guests, and it's 1.6 miles from the nearest trailhead. Personally, I love Lonesome Lake. Last year, we brought our kids there. It was their first time staying at an AMC hut, and it was awesome. We went Memorial Day, bringing on that family tradition, but it was so fun. It's not a strenuous hike, and there's an awesome lake there. And on Memorial Day weekend, I jumped in the water because I'm crazy. The next hut is Greenleaf. Greenleaf is closed for part of the year, but their self-service time is from May to June, so it's a very short self-service time. The rest of the year from June to, I think, late September is full service or on season. Greenleaf sits at 4,220 feet. Its capacity is 48 people, and it's 2.7 miles from the nearest trailhead. Greenleaf sits in a really popular hiking area. It is very close to Lincoln and Lafayette, and there's a loop that people do going up Falling Waters to Little Haystack to Lincoln, Lafayette, and then they come back down by Greenleaf. It's a great place to stay, but I wouldn't consider this one for beginners. Next along the path, we have Galehead. Galehead sits at 3,780 feet. The capacity is only 38 people, and it's 4.6 miles from a trailhead. So Galehead's kind of far away. I also wouldn't consider this a beginner one, but it sits in a really beautiful spot in between South Twin and Garfield. Galehead is also self-serve from May to June, so similar to Greenleaf. Next, we have Zealand Falls. Now, Zealand Falls is another one that's open year-round. Zealand Falls sits at 2,640 feet and is probably the most family-friendly of the huts. Its capacity is 36. It's 2.8 miles from the trailhead, but that is a really easy 2.8 miles. It's very much just a walk in the woods. Zealand Falls is one of the more interesting huts in my opinion because the mountains surrounding Zealand Falls aren't all that great. They're fine, but most of them are wooded, or you have to go pretty far to get to like the Bonds. So you hike to Zealand Falls because you're making your way through all of the huts, or just to go to the falls itself, which is really fun for kids. Next on the list is Mizpah Spring. I used to always call it Mizpah. I don't know if other people call it Mizpah, but it's spelled Mizpah. Mizpah is self-serve from May to June, and then full serve from June through late September. It sits at 3,777 feet, and its capacity is 60 people. It's also 2.6 miles from a trailhead. But Mizpah is in a really interesting spot because you can take a lot of little hikes off the side and get amazing views. You can really easily hike up to Mount Jackson, Mount Pierce, or behind Mount Jackson, there are some cliffs that are really amazing. Next, we have Lakes of the Clouds, and this one does not have a self-serve time. It's only full serve. It's also the most popular of the AMC huts. It is the closest to Mount Washington, and its capacity is 90 people, which is significantly more than the next, which is 60. Lakes of the Clouds sits at 5,012 feet, so it's really high up there. It's the tallest of the huts. It's also accessible from many different methods. You could take the cog up to Washington and walk down. You could take the auto road and walk over, but I think most people will probably take the Ammonoosuc Trail up to Lakes of the Clouds. That hike's about 3 miles, but it's probably one of the hardest ones to get to a hut. On to Madison Spring, and Madison Spring is also only full serve. So Lakes in the Clouds and Madison Spring run from early June until September, October, somewhere in there, but they're only full serve, so you cannot go off season. Madison Springs sits at 4,800, so it's the second tallest behind Lakes of the Clouds. It has a capacity of 52, and the trailhead is about 3.5 miles away from the hut. And this is not an easy hike, so anytime you're in the presidentials, either Madison or Lakes in the Clouds, they're gonna be more difficult hikes. The benefit is you're in the presidential range, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Madison Springs is also the oldest hut in the United States, but it was recently renovated, so don't worry about it being decrepit. It's quite lovely in there, but it is historically the oldest hut in the United States. Pretty interesting. And finally, we have Carter Notch. Now, I have a very special place in my heart for Carter Notch. It's a really weird one. It's very old and it hasn't been renovated, so it's usually a little less expensive than the other ones. It's also open year round, which is super cool, and there's a ton of stuff to explore there, including a whole rock formation called the Ramparts. And it's basically these huge boulders that were pushed down in between the ravine or the notch during the Ice Age, I guess. Carter Notch sits at 3,288 feet. It has a capacity of 40 people, and it's about 3.5 miles away from the trailhead. The strange thing about Carter Notch is it's in between two pretty tall mountains, and you have to hike almost straight up to get to either one. So on one side you have Wildcat, and on the other side you have Carter Dome. And really, you are right in this notch, and it is straight up on either side. So cool adventure, but can be a little bit daunting if you want to knock a couple mountains off your list. So that's all the different huts, but let me recap some ways that you can save some money. First, if you're okay with it, go off season. Now, not all of them are open off season, that kind of stinks, but if you can find a time that is off season, that's not too dangerous, right? Not too cold, not too windy, somewhere that you're comfortable with, and you don't mind bringing your food, and you don't mind bringing your bedding, you're gonna save a lot of money. It's gonna be a lot less crowded. It's gonna be a good time. The other way that you can save a ton of money is by joining AMC. And if you're bringing anybody besides yourself in your family, I would recommend signing up for the family plan. I think it's $75, and I get 20% off my kids and my wife. So it's a really good deal for me, especially if I go on more than one trip a year. This year, I'm gonna go to Mizpah with my family and my cousins, bring that tradition forward. But then I'm also going to do a Pemi loop and stay at Galehead. So I'm gonna do 2 of the huts this year, and I'm really excited about it. I'm also gonna do one of them self-service time or off season, and one of them on season. So we'll see how the meals are this time. Okay, me from the future again. I completely forgot when I was originally recording this video to talk about my favorite hut. That is not a good sign. But guess what? When I was editing the video, I realized my mistake, put on the same sweatshirt. Now I'm about to tell you what my favorite AMC hut is. Are you ready for it? Although I do love all the huts, I do have a favorite. And I think that favorite comes down to the fact that I was there a lot and built a lot of memories playing games in the shared space, and also they have separate cabins. Can you guess what it is? Yeah, I'm pretty predictable. It's Lonesome Lake. So Lonesome Lake is just an awesome AMC hut, and it's really great for your kids' first time if you're bringing them to a hut, or your first time if you've never been to one. It's not super hard to get to. It's beautiful because it's right on a lake, and you have separate cabins. So if you have a family of 4 like we do, you're gonna get a cabin all to yourself, which is super nice. Yes, Lonesome Lake is my favorite, but that does not mean that you should hesitate to go to any of the other huts. They are all excellent. Even Carter Notch. It's very old and kind of rickety, but it's an awesome adventure, and I would fully recommend any of the huts, including that one. I just don't think you can go wrong. Well, I hope this video brought you some joy. And you know what would bring me some joy? If you subscribe. So please do that. Like it, comment, tell me which one's your favorite. Which one is your favorite hut? I want to know. The people want to know. Write it below. Thank you so much for watching, especially all the way to the end. It means the world to me.